In previous videos, I've talked about the importance of having a set of core values that anchor the culture within your organization. Core values are a small number of non-negotiable behaviors that drive your culture. They're based on what's best, what's right, what's most noble about who you are as an organization. But the question becomes, once you have a set of core values, what do you do with them so that they don't become a plaque on the wall and a joke to the organization because they're not really being lived? So I'm going to talk about a number of what I call core values, actions to live by, things that breathe life into your core values. Number one is it's using your core values when you assess talent. I've also talked in previous videos about doing a quarterly talent assessment where you figure out who your A, B, and C players are. In most organizations, that's based on productivity. But what you want to do is make sure that living your core values becomes as important or even more important in how you assess your employees. Next thing you want to do is use your core values in recruiting. When you're recruiting, what are you doing to sell your core values? What are you doing when you're evaluating prospective employees to make sure that they already live the core values that are most important in your organization? Next is storytelling. One of the best ways to make sure your organization knows the core values are important to you and to make sure they understand the meaning of those core values is to tell stories. Whether it's in a weekly meeting or a town hall meeting, tell stories about how folks within the organization have lived those core values. Next is the onboarding process. What are you doing after you hire someone and you onboard them to make sure they know not only what your core values are, but how important those core values are to the organization? In one large organization I worked with, they had a onboarding team that was part of the human resources function that onboarded folks. But when it came to core values, the CEO came in to talk about core values. That told people how important the core values were, that the CEO was taking his time to make sure to come in and talk about them. Performance appraisals. Now, if you've watched my previous videos, you know I'm not a big fan of performance appraisals. But if you do have an annual, semi-annual, or quarterly performance appraisal, are you appraising people on their ability to live the core values? And are you giving people feedback on how they can do a better job living those core values? Recognition and rewards. I'm not a big fan of Employee of the Month programs, but what could you do to recognize folks on a regular basis for being a great example of living the core values? Themes. One of my clients, for a year, they had 4 core values, did a quarterly theme. Each quarter was a different core value, and they had contests and games and learning events all around the core values. Second to last that I'll share is everyday modeling and reinforcement. And I find that's actually the most important thing. If someone does a great job in a meeting, don't just say great job. Say, hey, I've got to tell you, you did an amazing job of living our we treat everybody like grandma core value, or you did an amazing job of living our we figure it out core value. Or the opposite, if they didn't do a good job in the meeting, if you could relate your feedback to a core value, that makes it more specific and again reinforces how important core values are to you and your organization. And the last thing I'll mention is something most organizations do first is the bling. T-shirts, mugs, hats, posters with your core values. If that's all you're doing, don't do it. But if that's part of a bigger program to keep those core values in front of people, that's great as well. So hopefully you've gotten some great ideas. Pick 1 or 2 from the list to help you keep the core values alive in your organization.